Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing our Warhammer Space Marine series by exploring what happened after this Ultramarine unleashed unspeakable horrors from my previous cave diorama. But today we are exploring a band of scouts that have been split up on their reconnaissance mission. One by one they have disappeared. Now, this is actually the first box of Warhammer that wasn't monopose. Now, I wanted to do something special and try and magnetize the arms, something I've never done before. Some of you have previously asked, have I ever messed up when making dioramas? And the answer is an outstanding yes. Now, here's a great example. For whatever reason, my ego thought magnetizing the arms should be a piece of cake. So much so, I didn't even look up any information beforehand. So as you might imagine, it really didn't end up well. So after filling his arm holes with clay, we can finish the model and get ready to make the diorama by gluing a tea coaster to some foam. Now, to start shaping this diorama to not look like some foam stuck onto a tea coaster, I whacked out my hot wire table that will allow me to have some more control and precision when cutting around a circle. Now, I carved a U-shape into the foam as I planned for this diorama to be a poor Space Marine scout treading through a swampish river. And to create this landscape, I grabbed out a pair of clippers and got clipping. And this is the most mind-numbing part of any project, any diorama, but it's so important as it is a great way for our air-drying clay to get nice and stuck in. And speaking of clay, it's clay time. After dipping the clay into some water, it makes it nice and moldable, allowing me to create a small riverbed. But what it didn't prepare me for was the pain of a hot glue gun that I somehow left on for half an hour beforehand. Because it was so hot, the glue literally leaked out onto my hand. Oh boy. After a quick trip to the old cold water, it's time to start priming our model. Let's get on to painting our man of the hour, the Space Marine Scout. Continuing with the Ultramarine theme, we will be giving him a dry brushed base coat of Macragge Blue. Since I don't actually own any dry brushes, I use some makeup brushes for now. And since we are dry brushing over a black base coat, it will make some nice dark shadows. Then the next step was dry brushing a nice medium blue, pretty much everywhere going in a circular pattern, trying to keep some of the Macragge Blue in the recesses. For the final highlight, I used some Calgar Blue, and only dry brushed the edges and the tops of the armor panels, giving us a nice gradient. Now it's time to paint his khaki trousers with some khaki by Vallejo. Now I made sure not to get any onto the blue armor panels, but when I did, I can easily touch up with some more Macragge Blue. Now I actually really like how much contrast this gives to the model. And when adding some highlights, I added some basic skin tone to the khaki mix. Then for all the leather, I used a base coat of Rhinox hide for his pistol holster and all these little nice pouches. So to mix things up, I painted his boots and belt black. Now I've never really found an easy colour scheme for white skin, but this time I used basic skin tone by AK Interactive and just base coated his face in it. So let's go back to the khaki clothes, and I added pure highlights over all the creases. And it's finally time for all that shiny gold. And for this we will be using Elven Gold by Scale 75. And promptly moving forward to the next metallic, it is Black Metal. My favourite metallic paint ever made, so I painted this all over the inner casing of the bolter, his grenades, his little rebreather system on his chest, and of course his visor. As his current skin tone looks like me in winter, let's warm him up a bit with some thinned down Guilliman flesh tone. And quickly for all the leather, I added an almost wash of Scrag Brown and made it look weird and drippy, so when it dries it looks like a nice aged leather effect. As the scout is sneaking his way into the enemy territory, he's going to be quite muddy, so it's time to whack out these enamel washes. I started washing the whole miniature in some streaking grime. Then, for around the boots or areas he'd get really mucky, I added a dark mud wash. Then 10 or so minutes later, once it's dried down but it's not fully dry, I whack on my odorless mineral spirits, and using a cotton wool bud, I slowly wipe away, making sure not to put too much pressure, because if you put loads of pressure on, you'll wipe away the excess paint. This is why you see a lot of people varnishing beforehand. Who has the time for that? Not me. But this is why it's got to be nice and gentle with the cotton wool bud and just slowly wipe away the excess oils. With our Space Marine now left outside to dry, let's get back to the diorama and get some of that Smart Mud 2.0, which is a really easy to use air drying clay that resembles dirt once it's dried. One of the great things about this clay is that it's really soft. So if you were adding tank tracks or even footprints, you can easily imprint them into the clay. So to make the ground look a bit more realistic, I added some bark chips and some grass foam flocking for some texture on the ground. And to get this all stuck down, I used some isopropyl alcohol and poured it all over the diorama. This will get rid of any surface tension, allowing the watered down white glue to seep deep into the diorama. So while this was drying, I thought it might be fun to make some straw-like tufts. I used a ball of string and unraveled it, then I cut it up and glued it together. And I can definitely see some uses for this, not for this diorama yet, but let me know what this might look good in. So let's finally meet our cheeky aliens. I slipped in half 2 Tyranids from the Leviathan box set, and using some super glue, I put them at the bottom of this little stream creek. Now before we prime the diorama, I made sure to coat all of the exposed foam in a paint on primer, as a spray can will dissolve the foam once it hits it. With the zenithal highlight now done on the diorama, I airbrushed the whole diorama in Militarum green contrast paint. I made sure to darken some areas by spraying some more paint on them. Using this zenithal highlight allows me to have multiple shades of green while only using one paint. And for these Tyranids, I'm going to paint all of the carapace in Sigvold Burgundy, trying my best not to get any on the white skin. Once that was dried, I plopped on some voluptuous pink and heavily watered it down into a wash-like consistency, so it'd all add some nice warm contrast to the skin. And finally for the rocks, I dry brushed a couple of light greys on top of the already green base coat. So to combine all this diorama together, I applied a streaking grime enamel wash over all of the models and rocks, so that it combines all of the painting styles together. Adding this green enamel wash really helps tie in everything. So now we can finally glue our scout in place and get ready for the resin pour. I wanted the water to look this really disgusting murky filth that you can't really see the bottom, so I added a couple of greens, browns and mixed it all together. Now instead of pouring it straight in like the old me would have done, I used a pipette so I can easily manipulate the resin to go wherever I want it to. And then finally I added some ripples using a really high gloss gel. I poured it all over the water and used a paintbrush to make it look like ripples, and I also added it all over the Tyranids so it looks like they've just emerged from this murky water. And there it is, the final diorama. I've been Reese, and as always, like and sub if you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.